when in a female's cycle is the best time to fast being the first 5 days, like day 1 bleed, first few days of when you have your period, because you have the least amount of cravings, great time to fast. Worst time to fast, last 4 or 5 days before your period kicks in for various different reasons.
Welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel, and on this show we explore the survivor's journey, practitioners making a difference, and the therapeutic treatments and transformational technology that allow the body to heal itself. Witness the inspiration we gain by navigating the human experience with grace, humility, and a healthy dose of mistakes. Because part of being human is being beautifully broken. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. I am your host, Freddie Kimmel, and I'm sitting looking over the beautiful, beautiful landscape of Las Vegas. I'm just off the strip at the Virgin Hotel and coming off the tail end of the Biohacking Congress in 2022. And I'm sitting here with my biohacking bestie, Kristin Weitzel. Kristin, how you doing?
I'm great.
Great.
I like that you're running the show.
Great. I mean, that was very clear because as we started, you said, tell me what to do.
Well, it's a lot to talk about. We just had this whole big weekend experience here at the Excalibur Hotel. And I think we both took a lot away from it.
Yeah. And I wanted to sit down. We've been talking about doing a Biohacking Besties podcast. You've been in one of my seasons. I've been in one of yours, which you've yet to release. And we always talk, we just say we should push record when we sit down and have these conversations to recap what did we just experience in Las Vegas? Because for the home user who is not there, it's a 2-day event and there is a stage filled with incredible speakers in the biohacking human optimization space. There's a floor which has vendor booths, people working with different probiotics and technology and lights and face creams and hyperbaric chambers and brain tap and all the things which you can walk on and get your hands on, right? So it's an incredible amount of energy moving through the space in 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the cool thing about that whole, I hate to call it the vendor area, right? Because I think that this is a small enough show where you get this beautiful opportunity to show up and do things that you don't at some of the larger conferences, like get inside a hard hyperbaric chamber, which is like an experience that can cost upwards of $200 or $300 in your local market. And you can try it out and you can have some guidance and it's very one-on-one. And it's kind of a cool feature of that part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, what do live events do for you? Like, why do you attend them? Why do you spend the money? Because it's an investment. It's the plane here and there. It's a hotel room. You're paying for food in a city. You're trying to get as clean of food as possible, which could be another podcast.
In and of itself, for sure. The traveling biohacker episode, because it can be so challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to post some of those photos of the chicken and the lettuce and the...
One day, I mean, we easily spent like $150 going back and forth to Whole Foods for bulletproof coffee. But one day I grabbed a rotisserie chicken, iceberg lettuce.
Romaine. He always says iceberg, but I always want to remind everyone out there who's listening, none of us should be eating iceberg. No nutritional value.
They're actually romaine hearts.
They're romaine hearts. A little more nutrition than iceberg.
Right. So and I also grabbed, I believe... What did I get?
Guacamole, organic guacamole.
I got organic guacamole. So I made chicken boats out of the romaine hearts, pulled apart the rotisserie chicken, and we had to wash the lettuce in the bathtub. Not ideal. I know, bad water. We had to pull apart the chicken and use a hotel towel. There were no plates in the MGM where we ended up staying. And anyways, but it was a good experiment because as opposed to eat food that was suboptimal, we did the best we could in the moment. So, but I also posed a question to you like 5 minutes ago, like, what is the value of you going to these events?
Yeah, I know. You posed that question. The value for me is always, with Congress specifically, the Biohacking Congress, because there's multiple every year. I've spoken at the last 5, which was really nice to be able to sort of share my story as well as get some touchdown time with other females because I work so much in the female health space. But this one was really nice because I didn't have the pressure of speaking. So I could do a little interview time and really experience a bit more of the show and how it feels hour to hour. So a lot of networking, a lot of community. I would say those are the two biggest things that really spark me when I'm going to live events is it's never enough time. We're always saying we're all running around, we're networking with each other, we're hanging in community, and we are sharing best practices, which, within our community of health optimization fanatics, I think is important because we're living in this fast-paced vacuum quite often at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm running my Well Power podcast and my Warrior Woman Mode business, and I don't necessarily have other business partners to share ideas with. So when we're in a collective, we get to share these ideas and tell each other, oh, do that. Oh, don't do that. Oh, I heard this thing. Oh, in a non-judgmental, non-slanderous way, we're really sharing the information that comes our way and what we've seen from different brands and different partners and different speakers to recommend to each other.
Yeah, I would say that the community building is unparalleled. I always think it's incredible to meet your heroes or people that you've put on a pedestal of, especially in the space. I've had Kiran from Microbiome Labs on twice to talk about, he is the guru of my gut health world, Kiran Krishnan. And just to meet him and to hug, and we looked at each other, it was like, we've never met in person. It was like, oh my God. So he's incredible. And then I got to meet another hero of mine, Ian Mitchell, who I've texted forever about being on the show. And finally I got like this second time verbal agreement to do the show. But he's wild mad scientist working on things like carbon neutral concrete. And at the same time, supplements that are going to change the game for Alzheimer's and brain fog. And he's made an encapsulated form of ozone that is shelf stable. I mean, really wild inventions, and just such a nice guy. And so to meet him and see him and like experience his energy in real time, it's like when your heroes live up to what you've experienced, like through social media and through email campaigns and online summits, it takes it to the next level for me. So I think the value of me being at these events is like that physical connection and just to experience somebody's energy in real time.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's really amazing is I listen to you talk about these, like they're your heroes and they're people that I look up to as well in many ways. And some of them I know less about. And this is part of like the sharing process and the Biohacking Bestie process for us, is that I think a lot of times when you're at these shows, you're going and you're like nerding out. We're kind of all nerding out, but you do a little more nerding out and I do a little bit more broing down. And I use that term broing down because I don't think there's one that exists for like women getting together and really like in the sisterhood and talking about all of the down and dirty stuff. But there's, it's like you recognize that I was like, oh my goodness, you already met and spoke to and interviewed Don Moxley. And I really got a chance to get to know him better this weekend. And for me, I was like, oh, let's just lean into sport and fitness and all of the years of the background he has of HRV studies with his wrestling team at the Ohio State University. And, it's like sort of a nice balance there, right? And it's like a good reminder because you need both sides. You need the internal checking of our microbiome and our terrain, as you would say, as well as understanding how we move our bodies in space and what we can do to improve performance and just functional movement, across the board. So that's like a nice, I like that balance that we kind of go off in our separate directions sometimes and then come back and, nerd out and bro down together.
Yeah. And it's a small community, I think that, but let's hold for a second and just like pause on Don Moxley, because you like loved Don Moxley.
I did.
You're like, Don Moxley is amazing.
He has a lot of experience really with sport. And, I don't talk a lot often about working with athletes, but the more I'm working with athletes, including the professional sector of athletes, the more I'm curious and I have a growth mindset and I have a ton to learn. And using my breathwork application, using my cold application, using the biohacking and nutrition background, I continue to need people who I can look to and go to who have been doing this, who work in the fitness arena for more years than me. That's the way I get better, right? And so, and I have a natural proclivity sort of from, I think, corporate life and sport life in some ways that many of the mentors I've had, as ironically as this sounds, in Warrior Woman Mode's world, many of my mentors have been males because they cracked a lot of the code first, just socially and organizationally. And I think that's there's a communication piece there that really works for me.
Yeah.
And learning and taking in information.
Yeah. And Don, again, Don is amazing. I've seen Don speak 4 times now because we seem to be at a lot of the same events. And he's, he has put a lot of this actionable data on longevity with relation to spermidine. Spermidine being a supplement that is really garnishing some interest around extending lifespan and health span, how the body ages. It's really great. It's probably been November. I've been going at it strong. Again, N=1 experiment. I've had some nights where I've high dosed it and have seen some high shifts in HRV, not always consistent, but the data says that over the next 10, 20, 30 years that me taking this on the regular 2 capsules a day is going to help how I age. And Don had this great graph at How Do You Health Festival in Austin, Texas, put on by our friends at MSW Lounge. And he showed this chart of like how you die, right? With relation to what age. And so there was this big, huge colored out spot for it was 16 to 21, and it was all auto accidents. That's how you go, right? And then it started to look at heart disease and cancer and these other onsets. But he was really looking at that gerontological curve or how we're aging, and the data is pointing to spermidine, which is the product that Don speaks about often or includes in his talks, that shows great promise. So I love listening to him speak, and I do love his background in sport because he's very by the numbers, right? He's not going to run up on a pedestal and say, this is the one supplement you need. It's just something he's pulled into the arsenal.
Yeah. And he's different than a lot of the coaching. This is the big thing that, I think we feel, or I feel, let me just speak for myself sometimes, which is I have a lot of background in learning from coaches in strength and conditioning in that world. And then I have this background in biohacking. And there is a bit of a disconnect between the two, right? This health optimization, fitness training optimization, with that whole ARX protocol that I'm on right now. It's something that's very outside of that traditional professional sports or traditional, let's just say, strength and conditioning world. And so it seems you're an outlier until you're not. You're a little bit crazy and on the fringe until you're not. And the until you're not part is there's enough research and there's enough background and space in the biohacking world around some of these fitness tools and complementary modalities that is not getting enough face time. And sometimes, to be very vulnerable about it, I think sometimes I feel well, who am I to be the face who's showing up to bring this to that space? But when I sat with the Power Athlete team, these 2 guys I really respect in the strength and conditioning world, and said, I want to get you guys around the table with the ARX people and Dave Asprey and all the biohackers. And, the Power Athlete crew was well, that's what we're doing right now. And it just occurred to me in that moment that I was selling myself short in some way by saying, okay, that's what we're doing right now. I'm here as a biohacker representing red light therapy, the flex beam, breath work, cold exposure, and having some of these conversations about strength training modalities that are outside of the box. And that was a bit of a light bulb going off for me. Stop saying you need to get the people together and be one of the people that's getting together to make change.
Right. Yeah. There's an energetic around saying I'm here and I'm me and I'm all that's needed in the conversation, as opposed to saying, yeah, I want to do this for you guys. Yeah. Can you walk it back for a second? Because you just threw out ARX. You're I'm on this ARX thing. And I have a podcast with ARX. It has yet to air. I assume this will come out first. But if we were in an elevator for 20 seconds, what would you say ARX is?
First, I'd say I need to get my ARX episode out on Wellpower Podcast too, so that everybody can listen to both sides of the fence, because it's about your journey with ARX and mine, right? It's very different journeys. Primarily, I guess the answer to your question in a 30-second elevator pitch is that...
I said 20 seconds.
Oh, God. ARX, adaptive resistance exercise, is an opportunity for someone to be able to push 100% of an eccentric load. We might call that negatives in the strength and conditioning world, to be able to build force and your force potential and muscle more than you ever could any other way. And I've been in a 12-week protocol that I don't have the full data yet, but I've been in a 12-week protocol that seems to me, with a minimal amount of other training modalities in my schedule, that it is continuing to build muscle mass time over time to 2 times a week is my frequency of hitting the ARX. So it's safe, it's effective. It's not always fun, but it is the bleeding edge of fitness technology, and it is the future.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, I would say, again, from my experience using it 3 times a month since I'd really got to Austin, or maybe like 2 months after that, it's been like anywhere from a 64% to like a 39% improvement in strength in all areas, pushing, pulling, legs, back rows, press. It's been a very small amount of time, maybe like 13 minutes a week and like 3 times a month. So it's been my primary exercise equipment for strength. And I've been really impressed at how forgiving it is with my body, even going through all the surgeries I talk about and the chronic inflammatory response syndrome that I'll sometimes be triggered by mold or Lyme or whatever. I've still been able to kind of get up and show up with this equipment. So I'm really excited about it, knowing that with that strength comes mitochondrial density, comes a deeper ability to deal with all chronic illness, including cancer. So
comes production of HGH and higher production of testosterone.
Yeah.
It's always,
always good when you had a testicle cut off. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's exciting and it's fun. I just wanted to walk it back there to take us back to the Biohacking Congress. And we mentioned Don. And
10 out of 10, Don Moxley.
10 out of 10,
gentlemen.
Don. You heard it here first. There's so many other people we could talk about at the event that maybe we could just throw out some favorites, some whys, some whos, and some things you're excited to learn more about. Why don't you can go first.
I'll go first. Okay. Yeah, I want to hear yours too, but I'm going to start with the impeccable resetter, Mindy Pelz. So I had her on my podcast a little bit ago, Dr. Mindy Pelz. She's has a high level of specialization around female hormones and cycling, fasting, and working within the menopausal and perimenopausal years, specifically around fasting and other things. She's quite intelligent. She's written several books, and it's just nice to see her always. Sometimes I show up and she's the only woman on a panel, and I think I'm cheering her on for that as well. A lot of great minds up and around the Congress. But Mindy Pelz, I love her work. She's easy to find in Google, and it's a rabbit hole of information. She says, I put so much stuff up on social media, I don't even know where it is anymore. She's got a YouTube channel and Instagram, and well worth it, especially for the women out in the audience. But either way, for the people who are more interested in understanding fasting, intermittent fasting, long-term fasting across the board.
Great. I would have to say my person that I've loved seeing at multiple shows now and at your event, the Wow Factor weekend in Austin, was Molly McLaughlin, Sleep is a Skill. Sleep is a Skill podcast. She's so well read and researched. And the thing I like about Molly is that she's doing it. You see her committing to the practices that she speaks about, whether that's getting up and looking at the sun early in the morning, whether it's dropping the temperature of the house to 67 degrees, whether it's putting on her blue blockers. She really lives the life of a sleep optimizer. And that's so important to me. I can't tell you how many times I'm not calling anyone out. I'm going to call them in. But there has been the experience in which I have been in so many Western medical's offices, wellness providers that people have looked like death warmed over. I asked myself, I'm like, am I reaching out to you for optimization right now? Because you look like you're about to roll over in your grave, or did. Not a call out. And I also see this in the functional medicine / biohacker space. It's clear when somebody's living in what they're speaking about, and it's clear when someone is not. So I'll just say that as like a blanket statement, not a call out, really a call in or an invitation to. It's so powerful when you see people deliver a message and they have a sense of vibrancy, clarity. Health is so subjective, but when somebody's just, wow, they're emanating something. This is not 6-pack abs. This is not like perfect skin. I'm saying there is a vitality or an energy.
Like a vibrancy.
To which people present. And Molly holds that. Like she just has that glow about her.
Yeah. And you just love her because every time we're going to go out to dinner, she's like, we're going to go early, like, the Blue Plate special. It's pre-sunset circadian rhythm positive.
Yeah, that is a new goal for me, that I'm trying to eat before or directly as the sun is going down, because again, I'll go back to my N=1 experiment on the planet. When you cut into intestines, you will change the transit time of food. You will change the time that I need with an empty belly is optimized when I can really honor that. And so if I go to bed and eat at 9:30, 10 o'clock on a full tummy, all the other things that I'm taking to aid digestion, transient time of food, they're diminished. Like for me, 3 hours of non-eating before I lay down my head on a pillow is so helpful. And yeah, I do love that she eats early.
And you see it in your scores.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't following Freddie on Freddie Said Go on Instagram, he posts his BioStrap scores almost every day. So
yeah,
you can see his sleep, how well he sleeps, or call him out if he went to bed too late.
Yeah, I do love that strap.
And also it should be mentioned that, Freddie got up on stage and sang a tune. So that's I think that's one of the favorites of the Biohacking Congress or anywhere that you speak. If you are gracing us with a song in your presentation, it's getting a little like dinner and a show as well.
Is that the only thing that was good about my presentation was the song?
No, it's always good. I love to talk about amp coil. I love to talk about amp coil because in the beginning, amp coil for me felt way disconnected. I didn't understand it. I didn't quite know about frequency therapy or bioresonance devices like that. So for me, it's always wonderful to I've seen that presentation a decent amount. You always change it up, but I've learned more and more every time you speak about it. So now I feel more familiar and utilizing it and having experiences with it. But, some of these subtle body devices, because I think I'm so alpha biohacker in the beginning of my career, took a while for me to adopt.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to speak about amp coil. It's nice to pull it into where it fits in my paradigm. I've had such a unique story with health. That comes up for me in different layers all the time as I talk about biohacking. It's like, what do you do when, how many hours, at what time, and when does it become too much? But, the idea that it's subtle energy and not a system that vibrates the muscular tissue or the body doesn't convulse. People are always worried. They're like, is it going to be powerful enough? Is it powerful? And I'm like, yeah, when you start using it, your mind can be absolutely blown. From your experience, would you say it's not powerful enough, or what's been your experience? Because you've been on amp coil for a little bit, you've got to do more than a few sessions at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I bet I've done 70 journeys or something at this point. And I think number one, it's super down regulating, which, if you look at my cortisol lab work, that I need. And that's really helpful for me. I think I tend to stray away in the beginning from the emotional journeys, which is really interesting because the more I run them, the more I feel like they're shifting how I feel. And that's, it's like love giving and love receiving. And I'm like, come on, pull the literature on that. I want to see the science on love. What's love, or whatever. Yeah. But then I'm running those and feeling really open about it. And so I think it's been the journey within the journeys, and I've down regulation capacity, sleep, helping with my sleep. When I had the C word, and when that hit me last year, it was like I took that device to bed with me. I took that amp coil from our lovely friend who lent it to me for a week, and just every night really ran Wellness 2020 and really felt like that was the thing that put me over the edge, saying, I like this device. It feels like it works. Okay, I'm figuring it out. But the way that it transitioned, how I felt around COVID was night and day. It's the thing that really made me be all in on amp coil.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question though about the show. If we can go back to Congress a bit, which is
take it back to Congress.
I just want to ask you, was there something there, the one thing there that was an unexpected standout for you? Something that you were I didn't expect this to be at the show, and it kind of blew my mind and was awesome, or this really stood out to me because it didn't. I wouldn't have normally thought it fit in, but it did in some way. It added value.
Goodness, yeah, I would go to Wesley King. Yeah, I would go to Wesley, and not that he didn't fit in, but Wesley is the biohacking banker on Instagram, and he gave a presentation about the overlap of financial wellness and funding your technology and building a successful business and fundraising, and the idea that innovation is going to drive this monetary river to flow into your company. There was so many good themes in his talk, which I only, truth be told, I got half of it because I was running the amp coil booth at the same time. But I just really love what he's bringing to the space. And I think any conference, it's a disservice not to have Wesley speak. It's so important. People need to understand this. And there's so many times, because as a consultant for biohacking technologies and businesses, I'm on like 3 to 4 at this point. One's going to be coming up that I'm going to be consulting a company on their technology. And how do you make it work? How do you make it work in a business format?
Yeah.
Why is it profitable? Why is it not? How does your messaging align with your product? How are you reaching the people to scale? How are you getting into new markets? And I'm learning all that as I go. But because of my involvement in this space for the last 3 years, I've learned a lot. And mostly I've learned what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Mostly I've learned what doesn't work. So it was great to see him there and to keep building my knowledge around that platform. I mean, he lives in Austin. He's a friend of both of ours. So I can't wait to just continue learning from Wesley.
Yeah.
Great energy also. Just like a lovely, kind human being who's been in my home. We went out to dinner. Like I would just, he's just a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would have to agree. I think that presentation struck me as well. It's really important. And the things that stood out for me were about, how we spread and course correct the term biohacking, because it's really polarizing for people, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, given my marketing background. But, and the platform with me working with FlexBeam, with me working with other technological companies who are raising capital and funding and all of that. And the other thing that I love that he talked about was just like how we set ourselves up as biohackers who are succeeding, or health optimizers who are succeeding, to be able to do some volunteerism, to really like put ourselves in a space where we can support other people in the health space, or we can do some volunteerism about spreading the word, or do some things to be able to reach communities who can't necessarily get those. We talk about ARX, right? There are 300 units in the whole country or the world, and it's a $30,000 machine. And how do we get more of those into the marketplace? Or how do we, and even on a smaller scale, right? Or even a red light therapy device that costs $500, $600, $700 plus, if it's a panel, et cetera, can be out of reach for some people. So how do we get facilities like Worthy, that's up in San Francisco, that just opened? That's some memberships that people are enrolling in, can give these communities who don't quite have this economic reach, able to use biohacking devices and tools. So I'm stoked to see where Wesley's reviewed like over 500 VC decks, and he's just really into that scene in a way that I think is going to do nothing but, catapult all of us who are in the space. Yeah. And that knowledge, because we see so much of this, you and I see a lot of the marketing backstory, I think, that comes with some of these tools and technologies, and really making biohacking and health optimization, whether it's supplements, whether it's tech, whether it's coaching, just making it approachable is like the number one way we reach people and we expand health.
Yeah, I think it's so important as we expand our awareness around what this space is, as it grows, as its living ecosystem. And I think it's evolved a lot over the last few years. I've become increasingly aware of the way environmental toxicity affects my body. Now, in the past, I've tested high for mercury, lead, cadmium, glyphosate, and mycotoxins from mold. Now, I know what you're thinking. That is a full bucket. And even worse than the list of toxins was the fatigue, the neuralgia, and the brain fog due to the burden on the system. So luckily, I was introduced to the Ion Cleanse Foot Bath by AMD at a wellness conference. The system uses both positive and negatively charged ions to help eliminate these harmful toxins from the body. So my N=1 experiment, after 4 months, I've watched most environmental toxicity fall by more than 30% through diagnostic testing. So for me, this is a win-win. The Ion Cleanse by AMD is a fan favorite of the podcast because it's safe, it's effective, and it's a non-invasive way to cleanse and purify the body. So as a special promotion, Ion Cleanse by AMD is offering a free 15-minute consult where you can explore your personal needs to see if this technology may be the right solution for you and your family. So schedule your free 15-minute phone consult by selecting the link in the show notes, my Instagram at FreddySetGo, or FreddySetGo.com. Friends, this is a heart-centered company. The support team is amazing, and they offer a 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. That is zero risk for the customer. So if you're ready to purchase, visit www.amajordifference.com and mention the Beautifully Broken podcast as your referral source. Namaste. I do hear this common messaging, which I preach, before you buy anything, right? what is your baseline? What's happening in your terrain? What's happening in your, I talk a lot about what we'll remove from the body over the next 10 years, whether that's environmental toxicity, whether it's mold, whether it's an imbalance in minerals, which is so fascinating to me. There's such great data you can get from a HTMA or hair mineral analysis test. I see that work for myself. I see it work for my mom, which I'm going to be talking about in my mom's. I did 2 podcasts with upgraded formulas, and then I had my mom do a hair mineral analysis. And so her data was exactly what she was experiencing. Her calcium to magnesium ratios, right? The idea that there is hidden mercury. And when you start supplementing with really good magnesium and thyroid support, all of a sudden you've got where the mercury come from in the follow-up test. Just like we said it was going to happen. So I just believe in the validity of all those things. And the danger with, I think, the biohacking world or the tech is that you could just buy things.
Yeah, it's like the shiny new toy. It's like I had a year, one of my annual clients show up who's like, hey, look at all of these things. Where do I start? What should I get? What do I do? And it's like, I feel confident in being able to be her trusted advisor, knowing her health history and her baseline and saying, hey, the shiny new toys are great. We got to start with the things that are really key, right? Like you and I would always agree. How do we deal with water? How do we deal with red light in our lives? Like, is there a feasibility? Because not only does it benefit you, it can benefit your family or people who are living in a home with you.
Yeah.
And so, you could easily spend a ton of money there. And we all need to find the things that are going to be affecting the baseline most robustly. Your favorite word.
Robust. The robust terrain. The robust terrain. Is there another person that you saw at the event that you just kind of resonate with, lights you up, that you were excited to meet or talk to?
I mean, there are so many, it's like I really like the fasting panel as much as I'm like, oh, I know about fasting. I love doing fasting long-term once a year, or, intermittent fasting, etc. The fasting panel was great. I always think Ben Azadi is he's just like friendly and really translates things in a sweet way that seems easily understandable. And that's, it was a big part of my corporate career, was sort of translating the ivory white tower information to like people of the streets. And so I feel like that's an important thing that gets overlooked. We have these researchers or scientists or people who like nerd out so deeply, and then this translating into common vernacular is something that needs to get done. And Ben does that really well with Keto Camp, talks about fasting in that way. And that's always sort of a nice thing. The one thing also I want is like, what's missing? That's what I want to talk about.
Oh, can I go back to the fasting panel though?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, it was hosted by Lauren Sambataro.
Oh, yes.
Biohacker Babes.
Yeah, we love her.
And we love Renee Bells. I just love what they're doing. I love how their podcast has evolved and developed, and I feel like they've really found their voice. They each hosted a panel. I thought they really, again, they just hold the space so well for people to have a better conversation, and they really kept their panels moving forward. I thought it was really, it's a good, if you've never run a panel,
there's finesse. You need to finesse.
There is finesse and there is skill, especially with everybody up there. Maybe everybody wants to speak. Maybe everybody doesn't. Not everybody loves to be on stage and speak. So sometimes you need to guide people like, can we go deeper on that? Is there a little bit more?
You need to make sure there's no dead air too, right? Nobody wants to step on each other's toes, and you have a moment of being like, okay, let me call you out.
Yeah. It's a live event. So again, you're trying to keep people awake, but they just did a great job. But in the fasting panel, I thought it was really interesting, people talking about the detrimental effects of a long-term fast, 3-5 days, the idea that the microbiome would be extremely diminished in its diversity. And they were like, everybody called it out as a danger of fasting. And I feel like Dr. Pompa and Ben both spoke to the fact that, yes, life expands and contracts, and there will be a low point in the diversity of your microbiome. And here you have a chance to rebuild that diversity on the other side of the fast. Hence the reintroduction of, what are you going to go back to after you cut food out for 5 days? Standard American diet, or you're going to use some prebiotics, a way to almost feed and reseed the microbiome to create a better diversity on the other side of that experience. I just thought that was, because we can see an article in CNN and be like, fasting destroys microbiome, right? And does it lose diversity? Yes. And we have the chance to better rebuild after that hormetic stress or whatever you want to call it on the other side.
Yeah,
I just thought
some
that
of
was
that
a great,
is the point of the
Yeah.
fast, right? Is like to be a hormetic stressor for the body, which is also good when somebody in the audience asked about eating disorders and fasting. It's like something that needs to be addressed. Sure, there are plenty of men with eating disorders in the world, but also females. Like maybe fasting isn't optimal for someone who's battling something like that. Mindy did a great job of talking about, using fat bombs to break a fast and why. And then we didn't quite get to it, but I've heard her speak before around when in a female's cycle is the best time to fast being the first 5 days, like day 1 bleed, first few days of when you have your period, because you have the least amount of cravings, great time to fast. Worst time to fast, last 4 or 5 days before your period kicks in for various different reasons, right? And so it's just nice to know that there are some experts like that speaking on behalf of lots of different styles of physiologies, and then the remembrance that we are all an N of 1 experiment in this process.
Yeah.
That was that panel was great because it also talked about 100 or 1,000 years ago, we were cycling our eating lifestyles and we were eating different things locally, and we were having a time of fasting that was forced fasting because there wasn't food. And then we were having nuts and berries when there wasn't animal meat. And then when there's animal protein, we were carnivore. And so it's just how everything is in a big cyclical pattern. And nowadays we tend to sort of get on the trend and bang the drum. And it's like this absolutist thinking around nutrition and dieting is something that I'm always, reminded of. It just doesn't serve us. I think it doesn't serve us.
Yeah. Even supplementing every day. There's great validity to supplementing on a pulsed dose. Often we'll even see this in Western medicine that sometimes they will pulse dose certain medications, certain antibiotic therapies. But there is value to taking a break from things. And, until modern agriculture or farming, you didn't have zucchini Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so into, I'm the most guilty culprit in Whole Foods where I'm like, I have my 10 to 12 vegetables that I always buy and I don't rotate. So again, if we can
cruciferous, my goodness.
I know.
So much cruciferous.
So much cruciferous. So much. I will say that it was a great panel. Fasting was great. Ben was amazing. Lauren and Renee both moderated wonderful. And I want to go back to your question. What was missing?
What was missing
from the Biohacking
Mick
Congress?
and Julia do a great job of pulling together lots of names and, smarts into a room, lots of different brands into a room. But there's always room to look at it and say, what would you have liked added to the mix?
So, yeah. And again, I just want to reiterate, Mick and Julia do an incredible job. It's not what anybody did wrong, but, to go back and pull back and evaluate, how could the experience be? How could I take more away? I'll be honest with you. My first thing would be to have less on the schedule as far as speaking. I would do more breaks.
Or some networking, maybe where people aren't leaving and coming back, networking, a mixer or something.
Yeah. Listen, yes, totally. We could do that. There could be a definitely should be a social event for everybody, right? Whether it's the hotel or, we often grab a group of 25 of our favorite podcasters and we go off, we do a big meal like we did this time, which was amazing. If you're ever in Las Vegas, was it Sparrow and Wolf?
Yeah. Wolf and Sparrow, Sparrow and Wolf. Sparrow and Wolf. It was incredible. It was really good food.
Incredible. One of the best 5 dining experiences I think I've honestly had. It was amazing. A prefix, and it was just organic and whole foods and no gluten. And it was just amazing food. But the idea that there's a big social experiment, interaction, integration, I would just say that there's so much information. It's like drinking from the fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I was doing 4 interviews. I was on a panel. I was keynoting. I was running the amp coil booth. So 2 days, it was there's so much coming at me. I would just love a way to get more. And whether that's spacing out the speakers and having a dedicated time where everybody goes in and we almost close down the vendor booths and everybody goes in and listens, and then we come out and we do a little biohacking and oxygen. I don't know the ideal way to structure it. It's challenging. You kind of want to let not everybody can be there for both days, full days. So I understand, it's got to have a flow to it. But if there was a way to almost, I wonder if there's other events where there's been an app where they announce the speakers and you get a ping on your phone.
Yeah.
You're like, Freddie Kimmel is now speaking on magnetic fields and bioresonance. Ping. Don't miss him. 3 minutes, Freddie Kimmel will be on the stage. No, it really was effective. It's actually MagnaWave, which MagnaCon, I'm speaking at in June. in Louisville, Kentucky. So I really like they use this app, and it let me know exactly when things were happening. They're like, we're going to deal with non-union fractures on the back hind leg of a horse. Get there. Don't miss it.
Yeah. I like that when it's like pinging you on your phone to try to keep you on schedule, anything that can help that cause. And I think too, like the experiential stuff is always, it's really a great way to connect with people at a different level. And I think there is a lot of experiential in the demo area, in the partners area, in the sponsor area, and with the technology and the tools and the supplements and things that are out there, but making it less about like just having one-on-one experiences, but finding ways where people can have some experiential stuff together. Right.
Yeah.
And like how that, that's always like therein lies the rub. That's always how do you make an experience that multiple people can get in front of or involved in that maybe don't know each other or do know each other, and they have something to take away that you always talk about, right? Because we'll talk about the show, we'll talk about the fun things that went on and the good speakers, but when you like get in an ice bath with someone, that's like, a whole different experience. And sometimes it's like, we talked several times about putting cold exposure and experiences at the Congress. I know there's challenges a lot of times with like carpeted hotels and where do you put the
that would have been a nightmare in Las Vegas, especially the Excalibur.
Yeah, totally.
Let's be real.
But putting an ice bath, it's like, Paleo FX comes up in the end of April. They have an outdoor area. And actually they haven't done cold live experiences before. And now this year I finally get a chance to go and coach some people through the cold and give an experience that boost oxytocin, boost the mood chemicals and bliss chemicals in your brain, gets people sort of bonded and excited and socialing, Instagram stories and pictures. And there's some of that I think the experiential comes from, that makes it feel more like a gathering of friends than a conference, right? So there's a balance point there.
Yeah.
100%.
I like that. I actually, when you were saying that, what could you do differently at a show like this? It almost be like a 5-minute highlight section in which everybody's on the event floor, and you could just go, you could literally give each booth, be like 5 minutes. Tell me about your thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's the hydrogen generator, whether it was amp coil, whether it was rapid release, was that massage gun. I really love that massage gun. I didn't pull the trigger. It was great.
I looked over at one point. I was like at the amp coil table, and I looked over at one point, and Freddie had a massage gun in his own hand doing his own leg. He had like a woman at the booth doing his back, and then like some other woman at the booth. Just, he was like, ladies, who else can get a massage percussor or massage gun on me? But you seem to be enjoying yourself. I think there's a few photos of that.
I think there's a video. I think there's a live video. Yeah. There's so many ways you could change the experiments. Because you're out there, you got your body, you got to get it on your body, right?
Yeah.
And feel, like I said experiment, and I meant that. It's like, what's the rapid release feel like? What's the difference between a vibration massage gun and a percussive gun? It's hard to know unless you get a couple rounds at it. That's why the 2-day show is great.
Yeah, and I like this quick fire challenge idea. This like riff on the quick fire challenge, which is 2 minutes, elevator pitch. It can be 5 minutes. That just starts to feel like it could end up being a long, when you give someone 2 minutes on a clock and you make it like fun and celebratory, like get through the 2 minutes. Okay, great. 30 seconds. Next person. There's like 30-second break to switch to the next partner, or sponsor, or person involved. It's sort of like, it could go horribly left or horribly right, or beautifully left or beautifully right. And so people get to share a little bit of what everything's about, tease out what's happening. It's like I missed, I saw Pavel's session, but I missed the other gentleman who was doing breath work. I really wanted to see in the morning as I was getting things set up and whatnot. But, if someone had been like, oh my goodness, this person's on right now, I might have like run out of setup for a little while to say, oh, Bryant Wood's on. Okay, he's opening with breath work. Let me go get some of Bryant Wood.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. And I love that they had a really nice, they were filming podcast interviews with a Zoom H6, which is what I use. That's why we sound so sultry, and a Blackmagic camera. So I got to sit down with Quantified Bob and Victor from Lightwater.
Yeah, I sat with him too. It's great. We had 2 totally different interviews about the same topic with the same person, which I kind of dig on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there'll be additional, as a podcaster, you get to sit down and you get to really just pull some great interviews. And
Don Moxley. Sat down with Don Moxley.
One more shout out to Don. Don. At any rate, so we said we were going to do 30 minutes. We're at 45.
Oh, we got to go.
We're actually going to do a paleo feast tonight with Miss Molly McLaughlin.
Miss Molly McLaughlin, yes, and her paramour.
In her paramour. We're going to go to True Food Kitchen in Vegas. So that's on the docket. Any closing thoughts?
My closing thought is when you're traveling and you're on the road, I think 2 key important takeaways I continue to be reminded of. Let's just say 3, actually. I'll make them quick. Number 1, get yourself outside every day. A bit of sunshine on the skin, as naked as you can if you're in a place like Vegas, and get sunlight in your eyes in the morning. That really helps sort of just balance your day. You were really good about saying, let's go outside. Let's get some time outside. Carrying snacks. You never know what you're going to get. I actually thought the lunches were great at Excalibur, like the salmon. It was very paleo, and obviously they curate. Sometimes you go to these events and the food is not in alignment with health and wellness, and that can be shocking. So I think they did a great job on food, but carrying snacks so that you can have other things when you're on the go. Meat bars. We ate epic out of meat bars this weekend.
Yeah.
And, checking in on that. And then the last thing I would say is I have this great new pair of blue blocking glasses. I did not do a great job of bringing them to the show. I use them at night from Viva Rays. It has 3 magnetic lenses. I have the daytime lenses, the midday lenses, and the pre-sleep lenses. And I could have done a better job utilizing them at the show. I kept snapping my fingers and saying, damn, I wish I had those with me, because the junk light in the casinos is no bueno.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the air quality in the casinos.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Smoking is still allowed.
Tip of my hat to you, Vegas. If you can live here and you can thrive, I'm just, it's tough, and moved a couple of hotel rooms due to mold. I think you need to give a shout out to the hotel we're in right now. Yeah, Virgin Hotels, which is the old
Hard Rock.
In
which
Vegas.
We both have party histories in.
Yeah. I mean, I was here in 2011. It was just like total MTV spring break, and it's beautiful. Working stations, office, beautiful co-working spaces, great outdoor pool, grounding pool with sand in it.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, if the next time I come back for a conference, there will be no question where I stay. It will be the Virgin Hotel. No sponsorship there. They didn't ask us for that plug, but listen.
No, the food was good. Everything. I mean, they have a little shop that's reasonably priced, which you never get in Vegas. Even the minibar things in the room are just in check. It's not
Yeah.
I mean, I had the best hamburger of my life last night here.
Yeah.
I can't even believe it. Unexpected glory.
Yeah. There's a Dunkin' Donuts, which I know everybody's going to say Dunkin'. Well, Dunkin' actually has a really clean coffee bean, and they make a great Americano that's totally acceptable. They had numerous places to eat paleo downstairs and at least get whole foods, whole vegetables, a walking distance Chipotle, which we know if you're going to eat fast food, it's probably the number 1 contender. There's a Fogo de Chao down the street.
Yeah. Busy. And I feel also we got to give a shout out to Eric and the team at the craps table, who really just took us under their wing and taught us how to play craps in this environment that I didn't think we'd ever experience. I mean, I'm not a huge gambler, but I've been dying to learn how to play craps or really understand the game better, right? Because I've probably blown on somebody's dice along the way, but...
Oh boy, it's really time to close it down. We're going to leave it there, folks. We are so grateful that you stopped in to listen to this podcast. And again, the Biohacking Congress, check them out online because they have events coming up in Boston and Miami. And the vendors and the speakers are always changing and evolving.
Yeah, Boston is June 12th and Miami is October 23rd. I won't be at Boston this time because I'm running my breath and cold instructing Sherpa training. But October 23rd, I'll be in Miami. Freddie will be at both, just rocking all of his knowledge and loves hugs.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people what the Sherpa thing is? You just sort of threw that out. Why don't you
I
give
just
yourself
threw it out. Give myself a plug.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number 1, if you want to find me, I have the Wellpower podcast, and you can listen. We're probably just going to release this on both platforms. #Biohacking Besties.
Yep.
And number 2, yes, Sherpa breath and cold instructor training is in full effect. I launched it 2 months ago. Super excited about it. There's a lot of good buzz in the marketplace. I feel blessed that is happening. And I have a training every month all around the country, one in May, one in June, July, August. And it is your opportunity if you are interested in instructing breath work and cold exposure, and both, to come and learn from me. I put a lot of time, effort, and have a lot of passion around this space for optimal wellness and performance enhancement.
Yeah. And if you, just from some, I've seen Kristin do cold exposure and breath, and there's nobody better in the business. She's flown all over the country. She'll short herself, but to Finland and trained in multiple workshops. And she's done this for years and years and years. very fluent on every ice technology that's out there, whether it's, getting your own bathtub set up or buying a container or using like the Cadillac of ice baths known as Morosco Ford. She is very versed in it all. And she's such a great technician and so skilled at facilitating this. So if you're looking to up-level your coaching practice, whatever it is, or your fitness center with breath and ice, she flies in for the weekend and does this training. And it's going to be something that will put you head and shoulders above the competition in your local municipality, as I like to say. So jump on that and check out our site because it's really, really, really good.
Yeah. That bleeds into one last thing, which is if you are a home user or want to be a home user of cold, putting cold exposure into your life as a non-instructor, it's like, this is a super important practice.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty impressed by which is why we're being impressed by each other. I'm pretty impressed by your whole engineering background and setup of the ice barrel that you've done. And then you filmed with John, and they should, people who are listening should get in on that if they want some kind of home setup that's good for a small space and easy and well done and clean. That whole setup it's a great rig. So you should put the link in the show notes to that rig.
Yes. When that is ready, I will.
Oh, look,
No, you're
supposed
right.
to be a surprise.
No, you're right.
Yeah, tell you about it.
I've talked about it before. I have an ice bath in the backyard that maintains itself at anywhere between 37 and like 46 degrees, depending on how hot it is in Austin, Texas. But it ozonates the water and it chills it and it filters it. And I haven't changed it in over 8 months. So it's just ice on demand when I want it for a really fair price point. And I would say it would fit in an urban environment easily.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the ice barrel is it's small quarters.
Yeah. So I'm working with the guys at Penguin Chiller to set up a kit where you can just get everything that I did and go to work. Go Tim the Toolman Taylor, which we actually quoted in the podcast. I'm like, we're like
You're dating
Alan
yourself.
Tim.
Thank God I'm in my 30s still.
Yeah, me too. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. This is Kristin Weitzel. This is Freddie Kimmel. This is the Beautifully Broken Podcast. And this is probably the Well Power Podcast. And again, thank you. Namaste. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to speak up about a brand new technology I've been using. The upgraded Formula's HTMA test, which is a hair test mineral analysis. What this test allows me to do is from my home and my bathroom more specifically, is send away some hair and look at how the minerals in my body are balanced. These are the building blocks of how my body holds energy, burns fat, how easy I fall into sleep, and how I manage stress. This is a test so valuable I found that I had my mom do it not once, but twice. So please use code Freddie10, all caps, and get your own HTMA test and see how your body is doing with the building blocks of health and vitality. My friends, you made it to the end of the podcast. Can you believe this is season 4? Wait, don't turn it off yet. Before you go, I have something very important I need to say. There are 2 ways in which we can build this relationship that we've been working on. The first one is to join me on my membership program at buymeacoffee.com/FreddieSetGo. You get early access to all the podcasts, bonus episodes, discounted coaching, and free webinars with thought leaders in the wellness and technology industry. The second way to support this guy right here is to go to FreddieSetGo.com and download the Beautifully Broken Buyer's Guide. This is my ebook. It's a collection of transformational technology, supplements, and courses that have worked for me, my clients, and my family. These are things that I have found incredibly helpful in my personal healing journey, like the Ionic Foot Bath, or Amp Coil, or the Red Light. Most offer significant discounts by clicking the link or using the discount code. Now, please know they don't cost you anything extra, and at the same time, they do support the podcast through affiliations. Friends, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. 5 stars if you loved it, and, well, I guess if you're compelled to listen to this entire thing and leave a 1-star review, I'm going to take that too. If you want to connect with me directly, I spend most of my time on the social media platform known as Instagram at FreddySetGo. Or you can find me at buymeacoffee.com/FreddySetGo or FreddySetGo.com. And lastly, from my vast team of legal internet lawyers, which I pay a lot of money to, the information on this podcast is for educational purposes only. By listening, you agree not to use the information found here as medical advice to treat any medical condition in yourself or others. Always consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. That's all for today. Our closing: the world is changing. We need you at your very best. So take the steps today to always be upgrading. Remember, while life is pain, putting the fractured pieces back together can be a beautiful process. I love you. I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel.